welcome everyone. Hello Ned. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Marino? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's Friday. It's Friday and my kiddo is at home today too. He's
Oh,
got a
excellent.
PA. Yeah, he's got a PA day and when I was like thinking about actually having this day off, I completely forgot about the fact that he had a PA day. So it conveniently worked out when my wife told me about it. I'm like, "Ah, okay, fine." Um, So the nice thing is my father-in-law, he's not too far away, and I just asked him this morning, "Hey, can you come hang out for a little bit while I do some stuff?" And he's like, "Sure." So I packed them up with some lunch, and they're chowing down, and we can get
Very
on with our
nice.
stream.
Very nice. Yeah, mine are a little bit older, so I don't have like if one has to stay home, they can take care of themselves. Uh, my youngest, I still need to make lunch for, but the other two, they can make their own lunch. They can handle whatever comes around, which is nice because it was not like that for many years. Um,
See, I would hope that one day my kid can start making lunch for himself and me too. Like, when he's off, he could just be like, "Hey, Dad, I made you something to eat," and I'd be like, okay.
look at
um,
it suspiciously, like, do I really want to eat that?
what did you put in there? How much salt did you use? Did you use salt? Did you use sugar? What did you? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I've made those mistakes when I was a kid. Like, my mom would just not like she'd be doing something, and I just like try to make lunch or make something, and it'd just be not the greatest. I've learned. Like, I've had 30 plus years to figure this out. So,
Sure. I mean, I think everyone at one point has done one of two foolish things. Either tried tasting vanilla extract because it smelled so good, or try eating baker's chocolate because it smelled so good.
oh yeah.
In both instances, you learn something very important about smell versus taste.
Yes, very quickly, very quickly.
And
So,
so,
today we are gonna get a little bit hands-on here, and I figured we'd be a little structured in that we'll set up a repo so that we could start storing all of our assets, our code,
mhm,
and then we'll dig around with Python. Like, just we'll quickly review some basics because I feel like whoever's watching this either now live or later on, they're going to want to know what a variable is and why you use it. And I assume that the majority of folks that come through and watch already have a good sound understanding of working with different parts of programming and development. But just for my own sake, right? I kind of want to be able to have this for reference later on and be like, okay, yeah, this is how I create a function, and this is how I work with libraries. And last week when you showed me that neat trick where you had the requirements.txt and
mhm.
it had all of the dependencies, that was cool because I never really thought about that. So we'll get to some of that as well, and we'll have to probably define a requirements too for this.
Okay.
Um, and then, before we got on the stream, what I was doing was I was actually in the AWS console because I actually had to set up some IAM permissions and really figure out how to get myself authenticated into the AWS CLI, which I've got the CLI downloaded, and I think I'll need some hand holding to get it, to the point where it's authenticated and I'm able to do something. I don't know what I need to do. I've done this a long time ago, and I actually don't remember how to do it. It's like if you don't use it, if you don't do it enough, you just forget.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And it's one of those things, yeah. So we'll get through that and we'll see if we can get to a point where we're able to at least make a simple Bedrock call. Like, if we can get that far, if we can even get to the point of just solving our permissions and our credentials and API keys, whatever that is, that'd be good. And then that gives us the starting point for next week when we can just start messing around with Bedrock.
Yeah, totally. And before we get into that, want to say hi to Sebastian. Sebi, what's up? Thanks for
What's up,
joining the
Sammy?
stream.
Thanks for coming along. I always appreciate community folks coming by and hanging out with us and learning with us, and even guiding us as well if we mess up somewhere here and there. So I'm going to do us a solid, and I'm going to share my screen here. So Ned, what were you up to this week?
It was a busy week for me. I was teaching a 3-day Terraform class called Terraform Foundations, and this is put on by the HashiCorp Academy. So um, they recently revised all of the slides and the labs for the course, and so this is the first time I was teaching it with the new labs and the new slides, and it was an adventure.
Oh, that is fantastic. You know, the ability to teach a course is such a valuable skill. I can tell you that in my other enterprise days when I was working with enterprise customers, I still do. Um, I spent a lot of time teaching too. I would
Hmm.
go in there and run like, 3-4 day workshops on like technologies like NSX, and it's not so much about the technology itself, but the stuff to get there. So I would be digging into things like, how to what a VXLAN is and how that's constructed, and why this is important in software defined networking. And that was really fun to me because what it would do for me is just reaffirm my own understanding sometimes. And someone would pipe up and say, "Oh, I think you mean this," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I made a mistake there." Right?
Yeah,
But it's one of those things that's so powerful. Anyways, let's create a
let's
repo. What do we
let's
want
do
to
that.
call
Let's
this
create
one?
a repository. What? Well, we could go with the live stream on main as the
Live
name.
stream on main. All
There you
right.
go.
Live stream on
Yeah.
main.
So
It's
while you're typing, I'll tell my teaching story or my genesis, because I worked in consulting for 7 years roughly, and my favorite part of a lot of the consulting engagements we had was sitting with the client towards the end and walking them through this new thing that I'd set up for them and how to use it. Because, once I'm out the door, I'm gone. And now they're responsible for managing this exchange upgrade I put in or this vSphere cluster or whatever it was. And I really enjoyed teaching it to them in part because they would ask really interesting questions that I might not even have thought about. And you don't realize how little you know about a topic until you have to teach it to somebody else. And you start second guessing yourself and getting these questions that are like poking at the periphery of your knowledge. And you're like, oh, I never really thought about that before. How does vMotion actually work? It's like, I better dig into that.
I feel like I could have a full on conversation with about like vMotion, storage vMotion all over again. Like, yeah, I don't think we use it these days. I mean, are people still using these technologies? And hey,
Uh,
Akansha, thanks for coming by.
hey, Concha. Oh, they absolutely are. The One of the companies that was involved in the training,
Hmm.
they were mostly planning to use Terraform for their local vSphere stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
they are still very much running, vSphere and doing vMotions and storage vMotions and all that kind of stuff. So that is still very relevant to a lot of people. And other departments of that company had adopted Terraform to work with AWS. And so it was sort of a trickle down thing where these other departments were talking about how great using Terraform was. And so this department wanted to get in on it. And they were like, does it work with VMware and like some of the other stuff we're using? It's like, yeah, it absolutely does. So yeah, still a lot of on-prem stuff, a lot of VMware out there.
I love it. There's the fact that VMware is still like thriving technology wise is still thriving in a lot of different data centers means that it's going to take a long time before folks start migrating in different directions. By the way, for folks wondering how the heck I got into a VS Code editor, I learned this trick from someone. I can't remember. I think it was Peter Jalcevic,
Hmm.
someone I used to work with back in my solo days. And on my keyboard, I just hit the dot or the period, and it just
Mhm.
pulls up the web editor. But I don't want to use that. I actually don't know how to get back. That's the thing. I know how to get here, but I don't know how to get back. So what I'd like to do is actually flip to VS Code
Okay.
so that we could take a look at that.
And you made
And
this public, right?
oh, did I? I hope I did.
You did.
Oh,
Yeah. No, it's
oh,
100% public and we
there you
can
go.
share the link out. I'll get that going.
Yeah, let me just drop it in the chat here for all
Okay.
of us. Rubber duck debugging is clutch. Oh, that was you.
That was me. So Sebi mentioned how useful it can be to just hop on a Zoom call with somebody and describe your problem. And sometimes the act of describing it to somebody else helps you fix the problem. They don't even need to actually contribute in any way. It's just like they just need to be there so you have a sounding board. And a tip for developers and really anybody who isn't a troubleshooting thing is to have a rubber duck, or in my case, I have a space ghost.
Oh,
keep the little space ghost on your desk, and when I'm having a problem that I can't quite figure out, I explain it to Space Ghost. I say, "Here, let me describe the problem to you." And Space Ghost, fortunately, never talks back, but he's a great listener, and he will help me figure out the problem, and we achieve wonderful results.
I love that. Space Ghost sounds like something from Space Lift. Is it?
It is not. Space Ghost.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Marino.
I should know Space Ghost.
I am older than you, and you're from Canada, so I can't blame you too much. Space Ghost was a cartoon in, I want to say, the late 70s, early 80s. That sort of Hanna-Barbera era of cartoons. And then it was brought back with Adult Swim in the late 90s, early 2000s, I guess that was. And they had a talk show called Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It was very weird. I imagine a lot of people imbibe substances to watch it.
I need to look that up. All right. So all right. So we have our repo up. We have VS Code up and online. I picked a new license right here. GNU. I don't know how to pronounce it. I guess that will probably cover the majority of this, because honestly, everyone can come in here and take what they want. I mean, there's really nothing in here right now, so good luck.
It's very chill.
It's very chill. But what I could do here is we could probably just start off with a simple app, right? Hello.py, which is so generic. But I feel like we could turn this into something. Like, we need a starting point, right?
Yeah.
And what is it that we do? It's like the print function, and then we just throw in hello. That's it. Is that how it works?
Feel like that's the sort of thing that might work. Yeah.
Okay, so what I also need to do is pull up my terminal here. Save this. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do.
And because Python is a scripting language and not a compiled language, you can drop into the Python interactive environment and just run a command or run a line of your code and see if it executes successfully.
I think I need to also clone my repo as well. I'd assume, right? Yes, I have to do that.
Are you in VS Code now?
Yes, I am.
Looks like you've cloned the repository, right? Looks good.
Well, I've got the repository here, but if I wanted to run local, or if I wanted to run that hello statement here.
Yeah, you should save it.
Saved.
I generally have autosave on when it comes to VS Code because I will forget to save often. But yeah, that's locally saved, so you should be able to run it if you go into wherever you've put that repository.
I don't think I've saved. I think I've just opened the Remote Explorer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
this is a fancy thing that I don't do.
Okay, so I probably just did a remote exploration here. Maybe that wasn't the right move. Let's see. Is there any special thing I can do here? My inability to use VS Code is showing right now. I think there's a GitHub or a Git clone that I could just run, and then that'll just clone the repo.
Yeah, it'll clone it into the current directory as a subdirectory, and then you can, in VS Code, open that folder and jump into it.
And what I need to do is, actually, you're right. I could jump into that folder. So we're going to do another ls, and then it is right there.
Mhm.
Okay, so there it is. But my Python is not there because I haven't committed it yet.
Right, you'd have to commit and push, and then do a fetch. It's so fast. And Headscrew asked, "Hi, Headscrew. Are we going to use AWS Bedrock? That is the eventual plan. So we're setting up the repository, and we're going to get some basic Python stuff going, and then we're going to try to at least interact with AWS Bedrock through Python."
I guess that did not do much. Maybe a Git
pull.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go.
All right. So do I have Python on here?
Maybe.
There we go.
You do.
Okay.
All right.
There we go. It worked. Okay. So there was another bit where we actually had to establish our dependencies as well, right?
Yeah, that'll become more relevant once we start using the Boto 3 library, because that's what has all the stuff that we need, or at least a lot of it.
Yeah. Okay. So Boto 3 is one. There's probably a few others we might want to take over and take a look at some point. But let's talk about some of the basics of like any kind of programming language. So we need variables because they store information for us. And variables can come in a variety of types. They can be strings, they can be integers, which are numbers. There's actually different set of like types of numbers that you can use. Like there's floating, maybe, I don't know. And it just enables us to do and hold different kinds of values, or values of like decimal points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's a number of different sort of, you could call them primitive values. So those would be simple values like a string, an integer, or a float are usually the two kind of numeric types. And then you get into more complex structures that can hold those basics, like a list or a tuple. In Python, it's called a dictionary, but in other languages, it might be called a hash table or a map. So that's like a set of key value pairs, where the keys are all unique. And then if you reference the key, you get the value back.
Okay. So let's, I'm going to close this one off. Let's try and manipulate this a little bit more, and let us use some variables. I don't know, throw out some variables that we'd want to put in our print statement that we could just call on.
Well, I mean, we could do the stereotypical name. So just do
name.
like name equals Marino. That's your name. Put that in.
All right.
And you want to quote that since it's a string.
That's right. Okay, so there we go. Do we need, so I remember in like Java or maybe even C#, you've got to end in a semicolon or something. We don't need that here, do we?
Not in Python. Python doesn't use semicolons for line endings, but it does use indentations to signify like the inside of a loop or a block. So if you're doing something like a for loop, the contents of the for loop are indented, or spaces, or one tab. I like spaces. But we're not there yet. So yeah, you could say print hello, and then comma, and add in what variable you want after that. So just put in name and try running that, and it should say hello, Marino. There you go. All right.
Ooh. Oh yeah, I removed that. VS Code does some interesting.
It's showing you the diff because I think because you're on the source control view.
Did I not save it? I saved it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not doing what I want it to do.
Try committing the change.
Oh wait, I have to commit
Git
and then
add.
push her. Oh, git add, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
-A is that it? No, just git add.
Git add dot.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
And then commit. Or no?
Yep. Git commit -m space and then the message you want to associate with that commit.
My branch, nothing to commit.
Interesting.
That did not do anything.
Working.
So I see it there.
Mm-hmm.
Commit and push. I swear I just did this. The programmers in our chat are probably like, why can't this Marino guy get his stuff working? But this is the fun part. Like, we're literally learning in public. Oh, burn. Oh, this was 10 minutes ago. Never mind. So do I have to do another git pull? No.
No. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't. I don't.
No, it's not.
No.
There we go. So why did I have to do a git add and then a commit and then a push and then another pull?
I would recommend maybe closing VS Code.
Close VS Code. I can only find
No,
the close
like
button.
seriously, close out of VS Code and then launch it again from.
I can't even close it. It won't let me close.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, I can. I had to stop sharing. Okay, I
Okay.
closed it. That is so interesting. All right, I'll reopen up VS Code again.
Yeah, you had some remote access, some remote explorer weird thing going on that I don't think I've ever done in VS Code.
So I think I'm in again. Let's see. I'll present my screen again. Okay, there we are. Livestream on main.
Touche, Sebi. I agree. It would work on a Windows machine. Works on my machine.
So I am using a local repo. Maybe I should do some. Hold on. That's GitHub. There was an option where I could.
I would think you just open the folder locally on your local instance of VS Code.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, you're.
I forget how to do that. Like this.
It's one of those. Just go into the file menu and open.
Oh yeah, that's right. Open.
Yeah. Open folder and select the folder where you have it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Okay, I see it here. There we go.
Yep, that's what you wanted. So you were doing the remote explorer, which is why you were seeing
all that weirdness. Yep.
All that weirdness. Yep. Okay, cool. Solved it.
Now we're good.
I've never used the remote explorer, so that's actually super interesting.
Yeah, I think I'll
dig into that later.
So I've always done like the remote explorer because if I've been developing, I'll probably like pull up a GitHub code spaces and run my code there. But yeah, I didn't like. I didn't think about the remote causing an issue here, but that's fine. All right, we have what we need. And if we look back at our Python application, yep, it's doing exactly what it should be. Oh, I can't do the control R here. Oh, I can. All right, so that works. All right, we're good. We're good. We're getting there. Okay,
All
so
right.
we've got variables down. We can mess around with print statements. What about conditionals and input?
Well, to do input, you're going to need to add at least one library, I believe.
Okay. Okay. So what library should we add here? Or should we ask Mr. Copilot here, or Miss Copilot,
Actually,
whatever?
maybe you don't. There is an input method in Python 3. So you could, instead of hard coding the name Marino, you could say name equals input.
Oh, I like that.
There you go. So when you run it, it should prompt you at the terminal for your name.
What is your name? All right, let's put it in Ed. You're not
Nope.
from Toronto.
I am not from Toronto, no.
But we can fix that. Input. Where are you from? There we go. See, I love how it does the autocomplete because
Mm-hmm.
for someone that's like learning programming, it's helpful, but at the same time, I have some base knowledge of programming. I've done this years ago, and so I get where this is starting to go. Um, but everyone should always learn the basics. Don't like rely on Copilot or the autocomplete feature. I actually saw a tweet about that very recently, and I agree with that. Like, I feel like folks need to learn a bit. What's your location?
Let's say Pennsylvania.
Are you gonna make me spell this?
The other option was Philadelphia. I don't know if that's any easier.
Maybe it is. Delphia. Am I getting there? Am I
You're
almost there?
close.
Am I missing something? Oh, I can't.
It's Phila.
L.A. Philadelphia.
You got it.
Hello, Ned from Philadelphia. There we go. Okay.
All
So
right.
we've got user input working.
Phila means brother, and Delphia refers to a city. So that's why it's the city
Of
brotherly
brothers?
love.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
today I learned. Okay.
Here we are. Okay, so we've now figured out how to get prompt for user input. You were asking about like conditionals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Conditionals, loops. I don't know what we would do with that. I think where we can go with that is if we receive a particular type of input, that could be like error handling, right? Maybe we didn't put in the right value. I don't know if that's the right way to use the conditionals. Maybe when we receive a value, we evaluate it. If it's Ned, automatically assume that you're from Philadelphia, and if it's Marino, automatically assume I'm from Toronto, right? I guess that could work. So maybe we could do that, right?
Well, we could add an if statement before the print, and we could have it print two different messages depending on whether it's me or you. So you could say if name equals Marino, and then close that and do a colon to finish the if statement. There you go. And then indent the print statements like that. Yep. And you could change the hello message. It could be howdy for you and hello for me.
Okay. If name equals Marino.
Mm-hmm.
Howdy. Oh, I like that. And then we've got an else statement in there, right? I'm gonna do else if, or no, just an else because we
You
don't
could
have
just
any
do an
more.
else. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Okay.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah, because it will default to you if it's not your name, if it's not my name. All right,
Mhm.
let's try this and see what
So you
happens.
get a howdy, and everybody else just gets a boring old
Oh,
hello.
I like that. Oh, the formatting could be a little bit better, but we'll try this again. Then we'll put in your name, Ned, and then we'll just say PA for now because I don't want
Okay,
to.
that's fair.
Okay,
You don't
there
want to
we
write
go.
it all again.
Okay, that worked. That worked really well. So we've got our
That.
conditionals working. That's easy enough.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think how much further we can go with this.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to try like a for loop,
Okay.
is there a length function? I don't even know.
Um,
Let me pull up my terminal real quick.
there is a length function.
Not length. What is the function looking for?
What if we like created some sort of array and then we iterated through the array somehow?
Oh, len. It's not length, it's just len. There we go.
Oh, I
Well,
see. Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
see.
you could say for that work? Well, let's see, for iterates over a sequence. So it has to be a list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set, or a string. It will iterate over a string.
Hmm. So how would that work if we're trying to iterate over a string?
Okay, so do for, and we need a variable. So, we need like a local variable that will be used in the for loop. So for i's fine, in, and then the variable that you want to run the for loop against, which we could say name. Yep, colon, and then we could do print I, and that should print each letter of your name on a new line.
All right, let's save that and give that a shot. Look at that. It just literally like, yeah. Huh.
So I guess it Python is smart enough to say, well, a string is really just a set of characters. So it'll just break it into that set of characters and iterate over that set of characters, printing them one at a time.
Okay. I like that. I like Python now even more that it's able to be that smart. Okay. Okay.
Um,
So we've got some good things going on here. Think about functions, right? So let's just say we have different functions that are doing different things. I'm used to this model or this ideology of like object oriented programming. Um,
okay,
is Python object oriented? I'm not sure.
not especially.
Okay.
So you're thinking in the world of Java where you would define a class,
Hmm.
and then that class would include attributes and methods, right? If I'm remembering the terminology correctly. I'm probably getting a little bit wrong because I haven't done Java since, oh, I don't even want to say
I did
1998, maybe.
my Java was probably like around 2003, 2004. I
Okay,
guess is
so
like Java. Close.
yeah,
We're pretty close.
so it's something along those lines that you define a class or something along like that, and then you instantiate an instance of that class, and that instance has the attributes you've defined and the methods associated with that class
Mhm.
as part of the object. And when you create it, you have to define like constructors inside
Mhm.
the class. So there's only certain number of valid ways to construct that object. So you could make some attributes required and make other ones optional with default values or something along those lines. So you could have like a class for web pages, let's say. You could have a web pages class that has, it requires a head attribute and a body attribute and maybe a couple other things. And then it has some methods like render or something like that that will render the HTML. I mean, that's pretty advanced. We could probably start with something simpler, like a circle. Has a diameter, and that's all you really need to know for a circle, right? It has a diameter.
Mm-hmm. And then it to calculate that circumference, you need pi.
Right. So one of the methods could be circumference.
Mm.
So you could create a circle of a given diameter, and then you could use the circumference method to get back the circumference of it. And you could also, there would be like a radius method maybe and some other stuff. So like, or an area would probably be the other one. But yeah, so that's object-based programming, which is Python doesn't really do that.
So here's what we'll do. Let's do you know that that meme where people are like start drawing this little donkey or something or whatever it is, and all of a sudden it becomes
Are we keeping this clean?
no,
Because
it's
the meme is it's draw the owl,
oh
and
yeah,
it's
that's
like
right, the
step
owl.
one is like a circle for the body and like 2 circles for the eyes, and then step 2 is this beautifully rendered pencil drawing of the owl. So like step 1 is draw 3 circles. Step 2 is draw the rest of the owl.
That's the meme. That's the meme. All right, we're gonna do just that. So I'm gonna create a new file here, and we're gonna call it bedrock.py. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to jump right into the Bedrock stuff. I think we
Okay.
have a good handle of the Python stuff. Quite honestly, like a lot of this, what we were just talking about is somewhere shoved in the back of my brain. And I need to like bring it out somehow by seeing actual code and not trying to write like, the very basic hello world Python kind of stuff. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got some of the documentation open for AWS, right? So I'm going to pull that up right now. I'm in the AWS console. So you have seen that I've been messing around here and whatnot. I kind of went into I.A.M. and hopefully I made the right permissions. There's my user and it has like I think it has full admin access. I mean, I see administrator access and I assume immediately that it's got like basically root level access to everything.
Yeah.
I have a policy for Bedrock, which focuses in on, well, I probably didn't need that if I had this. And then I have another one for I.A.M. user change password, which to be honest, I assume just allows me to change my password at any time.
Allows you to change your own password, yeah.
But I don't think I have access to anything. Well, because this is scoped to everything in AWS, I think I can just go spin up EC2 instances and EKS and not have any problems. I just did that for the sake of in case this little Bedrock one did not work.
So show me the Bedrock one again. I'm curious what that is inclusive of. Okay. Effect allow action Bedrock star resource star. So this should, in theory, if everything that is Bedrock related uses actions that are prepended with Bedrock, you should be good. But if you need to include other services as part of the Bedrock operation, then maybe it would break there. Like if it has to talk to an S3, if you have to set up an S3 bucket or something along those lines, then this account, if you remove the administrator portion of it, wouldn't be able to do that.
That's true. That's very true.
So for now, we can just leave it the administrator access and try to dial it back later. I know that's not the secure way to do things, but we're just messing around here. This is for fun. If this becomes a real service, we'll bring in some heavy hitter security folks to lock it down for us.
I agree. Okay. I've got some really good security friends out there that can come in here and do some serious damage.
And then yell at us a lot. Why would you do that?
Okay, so use the AWS CLI v2 and enable authentication through a user in I.A.M. Identity Center. Use AWS Cloud Shell.
So
I don't.
just do the access key and secret key for now, unless we want to spend the next 15 minutes setting up AWS SSO. It's not called SSO anymore, Identity Center.
Yeah.
Unless if you want to spend the next 15 minutes setting that up, we can, but I don't I don't really want to. And you may want to stop sharing momentarily while you create your access key and secret key, just so they're not exposed to the world. But you're going to use those keys with the AWS CLI to sign in locally.
All right. I think I have done just that.
Okay.
And
I think it hides the
it does.
secret key, so even if you're sharing, it wouldn't show. And if you copy and paste properly, it won't show up. But you know,
I downloaded a CSV as well where it's accessible to me,
okay,
and I've got access to it if I want to mess around with it.
okay.
But I think
So,
that means that we should go to the terminal now and try and set
mhm.
up the. Okay.
Yep.
Let
So we're going to use
me.
the AWS CLI to store your credentials in your home directory, because that's when you run AWS configure. All it's really doing is writing files to the .aws hidden directory in your user directory.
So this reminds me of like using kubectl and some of the other
Mhm.
commands. Okay, here's my access key ID. So I'm gonna have to stop sharing again. Actually, okay, that's not my access key, but y'all get the idea. I'll just drop it in here.
Yeah. Um, and it's going to prompt you for what region you want to use as your default region. You can be brave and not use US East 1.
I'm trying to remember, like,
US
let's see.
West 2 is a good choice. Less
Well, we've
less
got one in
crowded.
Canada. We've got like Central,
Oh,
CA Central 1. Like, why not Canada,
go for it.
right?
That's fine by me. Hey, keep
Let's
it
see.
close to you.
Central. It might blow up. Actually, you know what? I have to be cautious because I don't know if all the Bedrock services are available everywhere. So maybe it might be ideal to use something like US West, or maybe I could do US East 2, US East 1. I don't know. Oh, it's cheaper in Canada by 40%. Okay,
Oh, well, there you go.
that
Stevie
is
has
easy.
spoken.
The
I
Central
didn't know.
1.
I haven't shopped around. That's great to know. Okay.
All right, so I've got my AWS credentials added in.
Well, Sebi says not all features are there. We're using the basics though. I think we'll be okay, and we can always change it later.
Yeah,
You're
and we
just
can
setting the
even,
default region in your CLI. You can set a
yeah.
totally different region when you actually run the Python stuff if you want to.
So if I went back to my AWS console and went to Bedrock, I'm actually curious if it's region specific, the models that I did enable. Um, I should probably represent my screen.
All right, so you've configured it. So
Yeah.
from what I understand, the Bodo 3 library will check your AWS credentials file to see if there are credentials available and use those if you don't specify it in another way.
So is there a way I can validate from the AWS command line that it is authenticated?
That you are successfully
Hmm.
yeah, there's probably a AWS describe command, or was it AWS list accounts? Oh, AWS
Oh, let's
list
share my terminal again.
AWS. The problem because I use the Azure one way more than I use this one.
AWS Bedrock.
Yeah, there is an AWS account help. Yeah, it's fun. That's funny. You can set alternate contacts.
Maybe we could do this. AWS Bedrock list foundational models.
Mm-hmm. You found that by doing AWS
AWS
Bedrock with the help option?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
AWS Bedrock.
Well, you're definitely connected because it is enumerating this stuff for you.
So you're saying that if I didn't have my credentials configured correctly, Sebastian's like, don't worry, I'm kidding.
Not in the cloud.
Oh,
Not yet, baby.
Not yet. Okay. So how do I check to see the models that I've enabled? Because I did have a set of models that I was that I think I enabled at some point. View model catalog. Nova Pro. Yeah, there was one place that I was looking at. View prompt management, open playground, request model access. Okay. So here, let me also share this. I really wish StreamYard would allow us to share multiple screens at a time.
You can share an entire screen.
I actually can. You know what? Let me do that. You be prepared that you're going to be able to see everything, which is not much, but like it's whatever. I intentionally. Here we go.
I just realized that the AWS CLI I have installed locally is so old it doesn't have Bedrock as a command. It's like a sub command. Because I tried running it and it was like, I don't know what that is.
Okay,
we're gonna have to do some zooming.
Yeah, we'll have to zoom in where we can. How does that look for you? Is that still too small?
No, it's pretty good.
Okay. So earlier today, I actually went in and I went ahead and just enabled Nova Lite, Nova Micro, and one more. Oh, Llama 3.23b. Just to be able to like see if I can load balance between the different models a little bit. And if we go back here, getting started with the AWS CLI, no, I don't really care for that. I wanted to go to the get started where we saw those Python examples because I wanted to rerun that example that we tried to last time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that worked as I hoped it would. Because I think last time you had some issues with the credentials, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That was probably part of it. I was probably also doing some other things that were dumb.
Oh yeah, I have to make sure I reset my Okay, let's see if Bedrock. Oh yeah, Bedrock's here. Good. Okay. And I just want to make sure. Oh, see, here we go. Not all the models are available in Canada, unfortunately. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. We could do Titan text. That's fine. Let's enable some models here. We'll do Titan Lite, Titan Express, Llama 3 8B. That's a little older. All right, let's see. Okay, access granted. Okay. Now we need to get to the getting started. I don't want to create a prompt. I just want to mess around with the. Don't make me Google Python Bedrock examples. Here we go. Okay, here we go. This is nice. I feel like we just did the owl thing, the owl meme right here by going right into the. Okay, I'm going to copy this because SDK for Python 3 Bodo Amazon Titan text. So let's go take this, drop it in our VS Code. Woof, that's huge. Okay. So we got to import Bodo 3 from Bodo 3 core exceptions, import client error. So we'll create a Bedrock runtime client in the AWS region you want to use. And we're going to type in CA Central -1.
Okay.
We're going to use this model because that's the one I think I've enabled, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go back to the models that I have. Titan text G1. I assume that's the one. Premier? I don't know. How do I validate that? It'll probably fail, right?
Yeah, that's one of those scenarios where checking through the CLI would probably give you more concrete information because it would give you like the technical name of it or like the non easy to read name.
I think it's this one right here. So this one is Amazon.Titan text light. Okay. So copy that one, drop that in here. Describe the purpose of a hello world program. So that's our user message that we're feeding into the model. And look here, it's referencing that user message. So we can change this to something we want, anything we want. I don't know. Describe why grass is green. And then let's run it. What do you think?
Yeah, let's run it. Let's see what happens. Let her rip.
Maybe I should remove that. Okay. Oh, here we go. No module named Bodo 3. So we have to. Hello. Hello. You might have to go. We'll see you later. My kiddo decided to enter the chat, but that's okay. He's just curious. So let's see. We need to add in a library, right? So what was the it's pip install Bodo 3? Is that what it is? Oh, I need to set up a virtual environment. I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so it did something for us.
So it should be the command to create a virtual environment is Python -M. Though you may have just installed the thing.
I might have. So
without using a virtual environment.
So maybe this should work.
You try.
Oh, no. No, it's not going to work. So what were you saying was Python 3?
It looks like you already have a virtual environment directory. Can you expand that?
Where do you want me to expand?
In your file explorer, expand the .venv directory.
Oh, here. Okay. Did not see that. Okay.
Okay. So you should be able to activate it. If you go into bin, there should be an activate script. If you run that, I don't know which shell you're using.
Should be CSH.
Okay, so just from the terminal, run that. You should be able to just do like, was it .v nv?
Oops. .v nv. There we go.
And then go into the bin and run the activate.csh. You have to do a / I think, to run the script.
Yeah. That didn't work.
You probably have to change the permissions on it. Yeah, you're gonna have to do a chmod on it.
Yeah, chmod.
Do chmod space +x. Oh, you know what you're doing. Oh, why am I telling you this?
No, I was just trying to remember activate.csh, but is that going to do it though?
That should.
I remember doing this somehow. You know what? Let's ask Copilot, where are you hiding? How do I activate virtual Python environment? Not in PowerShell. No, not PowerShell.
I think that's because you have the PowerShell one open.
Yeah, I don't want it to look at that.
Trying to use the context. Yeah. Alt delete, which great name. Says if you run it from the full path, so start from the root of your repository. And
yeah, I remember doing
there.
This.
See if that works.
I don't think it's source path to my VNV, but it should be something like this. No, that didn't work.
Well, you're already in that directory.
Yeah, I remember doing this once before. Now I can't remember. Control R. Not Llama 3. I had this somewhere. This is such a silly thing. We're almost there, though. I feel like we're so close.
This is the sort of thing that I found very frustrating when I started trying to use Python, was the need to create a virtual environment and then work within that virtual environment. It's not very intuitive. Once you're familiar with the language and use it a lot, then it starts to become natural, right? Because you're used to it. But that learning curve can feel very high because it's asking you to set up a requirements.txt file and set up a virtual environment and then install dependencies. And when I look at like getting started guides for a lot of the Python stuff, they skip over all of that because the assumption is that you have that base knowledge, that you're already comfortable with the language and all of its foibles. And really the only thing that you're trying to deal with is how to run the code that's in front of you and get used to what it does. It's not always an accurate assumption. I feel like every Python guide should start with, if you don't know how to set up a virtual environment, here's a link. And some of them do, in fairness.
I think I figured it out.
You got it?
Little Google handy dandy stuff. And then
Cole Alt Delete agrees with us. The hardest part to go from PowerShell to Python was the sudden need. Yeah, because I mean PowerShell does it a whole other way. You import modules, and then it's magic. It goes and finds the PowerShell modules you're using and imports them, and you can write your own modules. I did a lot of PowerShell before I started using Python at all. And the biggest problem I run into now is some days I'm doing something in Python, some days I'm doing something in Go, and then I'm doing something in Terraform, and then I might need to run something in PowerShell or Bash. And it's like keeping all the syntax straight. It's a nightmare.
So it didn't like my model ID.
Okay, interesting. Let me open.
Oh, maybe I don't have to specify the entire thing. I could just do this. Oh, look at that. Did you see that?
What happened?
So I just changed. So if you look at the models, right, for some reason it didn't like, I think it's because it's not enabled in my, I guess, region. But I couldn't find this model, but I switched it to this one right here. I just took this, copied it, pasted it right here, right? Saved it and reran. And look, the chlorophyll pigment in grass is what gives it its green color. Chlorophyll is a green pigment that helps plants absorb light energy from the sun, which is then used to create food. So it works.
So it worked. So let's just look at this configuration briefly, because I've been like Googling stuff on the side and whatnot. So what I'm seeing here is, if you could scroll up to the top of the code, what did we do first? We had to import Photo 3.
Photo 3, yep.
And then we also imported something that could handle client errors. And then we established a Bodo 3 client, and we passed it a couple arguments. We said we want to use the Bedrock runtime, and we want to use that particular region. Okay, cool. I understand that. And then we're setting a variable that establishes the model ID that we want to use for this session. And then a variable that's the user message. This conversation construct is interesting. And I think I would want to know more about why that conversation, I guess I would call that, it's like a dictionary almost. I don't know what data type that is, but we've got, it starts with a list, it's square brackets. So it's a list that has dictionaries as elements.
So I can kind of explain a little bit about this, in that the model itself, or any kind of model, is looking for a formatting. And I guess in addition to that, context, like you kind of have to tell the model, this is how I want you to behave, and this is what you should be looking out for. And you could do this in a number of different ways too. Like you could even set a role where it says system, and then the content would be like, only respond in a particular language, like French, for example. And then you would have another similar conversation here, which would be the user, us in this case, which would actually feed in the message. So this could technically be any user input. Like, how we did the input thing, user message equals, is it input?
Yeah. You could use the input function and prompt the user, what is your message? And then, let's try it. Use what we learned.
Yeah, let's clear my screen here so we have some nice real estate to play with. And I'll just go hit up arrow. What is your message? Why is it so cold?
Why is it so cold? You don't know how apropos that question is. There you go. Boom, right back. It gives you, and that was a pretty quick response time too.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of worried how much credits I just chewed through. Okay,
No.
so we actually managed to get Bedrock working.
Yeah. Yeah, we
So we
did.
can go a number of different directions now, but I think this is a great stopping point because we're
Hmm.
pretty much over the hour mark. So what did we learn today? Like, what did we learn, Ned? What did you teach us? What happened?
I mean, I don't know if I taught anybody anything. Well,
You taught me a number of things, like the owl meme
yeah. So,
and brotherly love, city of
the
brotherly
city of
love. Yeah,
brotherly love.
yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of what we learned today, I think um, we started by learning a little bit more about Python. Not learning more about Python, but like digging into some fundamentals of Python to start with. And we also learned a bit about the various models that are available in Bedrock and the fact that Canada doesn't have all of them.
No.
Um, to interact using Python and Bodo 3, we first had to set up the AWS CLI to pass credentials seamlessly from that credentials file into Bodo 3. So it will search for that. You don't have to like hard code credentials, and you shouldn't. I'm sure there's some other ways to pass credentials, but that was an easy way to do it. And then you took an example and put it into Python. You created a virtual environment and jumped into that virtual environment, installed the dependencies, and ran that example script. And then we were able to take what we looked at earlier of being able to prompt the user and now prompt the user for the message we want to send up to the model. So not bad. Not bad at all.
I think next week we're gonna have to take it up. We're gonna have to take it up a notch, kick it up a notch, and like do something a little bit advanced, right? Try and see if we can get to the point of interacting with an S3 bucket, right? Can we
Hmm.
take our input, maybe convert it into text, and then throw it up into an S3 bucket using Python and Bedrock, and maybe do something there with Bedrock?
Yeah, I could see. Yeah. Have it first retrieve the contents of the S3 bucket and then give it a prompt to do something with those contents. And I would like to have more of a conversation. This was very much just like a send it a question or send it one statement and it gives back an answer and the program halts. That's the end of it. But in a more realistic scenario, you would want a loop going there where it keeps the context window open and you can ask follow-up questions. So I don't
That's
know what that looks
important.
like, but that might be next week.
See, and that's why we cover the basics, right? Because you just mentioned something interesting. To keep that window open, we have to have some sort of loop. And you achieve this with like a while loop
Hmm.
while that context window is still, because using it with a for loop is a little bit more challenging because it's iterating through a number of values or
Yeah.
something to that effect, or there's like an endpoint for it, whereas like a while loop or a do this while your terminal is open or while you have not completed the entire conversation or something to that effect. But we'll get there.
Yeah, we sure will. All
I
right.
had fun, Ned. It was so
I
much
did
fun.
too. The learning experience. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week.
We will. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Same time, same place.
Same
Cheers,
place.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.